It was the best finish ever by a player. David Duval shot 59 in the final round to win the tournament.
David Duval is widely regarded as the best golfer in the world today.
What happened to David Duval? If you watched golf in the late 90s and early 2000s, you remember this guy. The wraparound Oakley sunglasses, the stoic demeanor. The guy who was supposed to challenge Tiger Woods for a decade. In 1999, he shot a 59. He won 13 PGA Tour events. He was world number 1 for 15 weeks, and in 2001, he won the British Open. Although most people thought it would be the first of many. Then, almost overnight, he vanished. By 2005, he couldn't make a cut. His body was broken. Wrist, shoulders, fingers, calves, back. His swing was just gone. His confidence was shattered, and his family never got to see him play at his best. He almost won the US Open in 2009, 8 years after his British Open victory, but that was it. One last gasp, then silence. This is the story of David Duval, the golfer who had everything, became the best in the world, and then lost it all and never got it back. David Duval's story doesn't start with dominance, it starts with tragedy. When David was 9 years old, his 12-year-old brother Brent was diagnosed with aplastic anemia, a rare disease where the body stops producing enough new blood cells. David was the best bone marrow match. He was the only one who could save him, and so he donated. The doctors pushed a stainless steel needle into his hip, and David screamed. His father would never forget that scream. At first, the transplant seemed to work, but then the worst-case scenario happened. David's bone marrow began attacking Brent's body. One organ after another eventually shut down, and Brent passed away. David sat in silence for weeks. Then, one day, just trying to process this, he yelled out, "I killed him." His mother fell into a deep depression and started drinking heavily. His father, a club pro, eventually moved out. The family, as David knew it, was destroyed. Through it all, David learned a powerful and brutal lesson. Death could be right around the corner, so he depended on himself and no one else. He escaped to the one place he could control, the golf course. That's where his father, his guide, found him. David would be on the range for hours, just smashing one ball after another, trying to rid himself of the guilt he never should have been feeling in the first place. Thankfully, he was finding peace in the game of golf. Golf became David's escape, the one place where pain had a purpose. And so, David Duval climbed. With his father's guidance, he became one of the best junior golfers in Florida. His talent was undeniable, and it earned him a spot at Georgia Tech, a powerhouse golf program where he became only the third player in history to be named a 4-time first-team All-American, putting his name next to legends like Phil Mickelson. He was the National Player of the Year in 1993. When he turned pro that year, the expectations were sky high. But the pro ranks are a different beast entirely. In his first attempt at the grueling PGA Tour qualifying school, he failed. The can't-miss kid had missed. He was sent to the Nike Tour, the minor leagues of golf, to grind it out in small towns for small paychecks. For 2 years, he honed his craft, winning twice and learning how to be a professional. In 1994, he finished 8th on the money list, finally earning his PGA Tour card for the 1995 season. He arrived on tour and immediately proved he belonged, setting a then record for rookie earnings with over $880,000. But a frustrating pattern emerged. He finished in second place 7 times before he ever won. He was the guy who could get close but couldn't close it. The questions started to bubble. Did he have that killer instinct? Could he handle the Sunday pressure? Then, in the final 3 tournaments of the 1997 season, he put the skeptics in their place by winning all 3 of the tournaments. The floodgates were open. He was no longer just a promising rookie. He was a certified star. But David wanted more. So, in 1999, he didn't just remain a star, he became a legend. On January 24, 1999, in the final round of the Bob Hope Chrysler Classic, David Duval did the impossible.
crucial putt now for Duval. Yeah, beautifully struck.
I think people have gone through and added up the length of putts, and I made 11 birdies and eagle that day, and I think the putts totaled maybe 52 feet. So 12 putts, what's that work out to, like 4.5 feet average maybe? But for me, clearly that was the best through the course of a round of golf I hit the ball.
Joined one of the most exclusive clubs in all of sports, and he did it to win the tournament on the final hole. Years later, David would call it the easiest round of golf I ever played. For the rest of the world though, it was simply unbelievable. That same year, he won the Players' Championship, often called the fifth major, grinding out a victory in some of the toughest conditions in the tournament's history. By August, it was official. David Duval had overtaken Tiger Woods and was the #1 ranked golfer in the world. The rivalry was set. Finally, an opponent who could match Tiger. It was the charismatic fist-pumping phenom against the quiet, stoic assassin in the wraparound shades.
At certain moments, it's quite incredible.
ABC even created a primetime special event called Monday Night Golf, a head-to-head match between the two best players on Earth. Tiger would eventually win, but the message was clear. David was his equal, his rival, the man that would push him for the next decade. But for all of David's success, one thing was missing: a major championship. He had come agonizingly close, finishing second at the Masters, but he couldn't seem to close the deal on the biggest stage. But by 2001, David Duval was ready to prove he wasn't just Tiger's rival, ready to win his first major championship. What happened at Royal Lytham and St. Anne's would be both his greatest triumph and the beginning of his end. He entered the final round in a four-way tie for the lead, with 9 other players just one shot behind. The pressure was immense. As he walked away from the 10th green to the 11th tee, a fan yelled out, "Don't worry, Duval, there's still plenty of time to blow it." David just smiled and thought to himself, "Not today, pal, not today." He went on to birdie the 11th. But then on the very next hole, the par 4 12th, disaster nearly struck. A rare, poor shot left him with a difficult up and down. He couldn't save it. He walked off with a bogey, his only one of the day. But still, his lead was shrinking. The ghosts of past major failures were circling. Everybody looked on, wondering, was this just another moment where he would crumble? The answer was a very resounding no. On the very next hole, the par 4 13th, Duval responded like a champion. He striped his approach shot, leaving himself a makeable birdie putt. Then he drained it. The bogey from the hole prior was erased. The momentum was his again. It was a statement. This time, he would not be denied. While his competitors faltered under the Sunday pressure, and while Tiger Woods, the defending champion, struggled to a distant tie for 25th place, Duval played with a chilling calm. He birdied all 3 of the course's par 5s, a masterclass in course management. He walked up to the 18th fairway with a 3-shot cushion, the roars of the crowd washing over him. He played the 18th in textbook style, and when his final putt dropped, it wasn't a wild celebration. It was a quiet, profound sense of accomplishment, of the wrongs of the past being righted. He had done what he was supposed to do. As he was handed the claret jug, the announcer's voice echoed across the course.
The winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is David Duval.
He was just 29 years old, a major champion, a former world #1. He had 13 PGA Tour wins. The future seemed limitless. No one could have known that this wasn't the beginning. This was the end. What happened next is one of the most shocking and mysterious collapses in sports history that is still talked about to this day. The fall was as fast as the rise. Just 2 years after hoisting the claret jug, Duval was a ghost. In 2003, he made only 4 cuts in 20 starts. The man who shot a 59 was now struggling to break 80. The stoic confidence was just gone, replaced by a look of confusion and despair. The most devastating moment came at the 2003 British Open. Ben Curtis, a 300-to-1 outsider, won his first major. Tiger Woods finished tied for fourth, and David Duval, the champion, just 2 years prior, shot an 83 and missed the cut. The contrast was devastating, unbelievable. It was really a public humiliation.
Since his 1999 win at the Bell South Classic, he has gone 14 months without a PGA Tour victory.
But it got worse. Next was the cascade of health issues: vertigo, back spasms, wrist injuries, shoulder problems, finger issues, calf strains. His body was just sabotaged. He tried to change his swing to play through the pain, but it only made things worse. The fluid, powerful motion that was his swing that made him number one was completely gone, replaced by a hesitant, unreliable swing that produced shanks and missed cuts. His shots were so far off, his sports psychologist said they were in different area codes. His sports psychologist wasn't far off.
Look out, look out, look out. Wrong move.
David split from his longtime girlfriend. He battled private issues off the course. The game that had been so easy for him was now impossible. The strong guidance of his dad, of his hero, the man who taught him everything about golf, seemed to do nothing for him. But then, in 2009, 8 years after his British Open victory, David Duval would have one final chance, one last moment when the golf world held its breath as it watched on. David kept trying, he kept showing up, but the results were mostly the same. Missed cut after missed cut. By 2005, just 4 years after reaching the pinnacle of the sport, David Duval was totally irrelevant. The rivalry with Tiger was a distant memory that seemed like a cruel joke. The wraparound sunglasses were gone. The man who was once the best in the world was now just another guy struggling to find his swing. But the most painful part of all of this was his new family, the one he had built after meeting his wife Susan in 2003, never got to see him play when he was in his prime. For years, that's where the story stayed, a tragic tale of what could have been, a cautionary lesson about the razor-thin margin between greatness and obscurity in professional sports. Duval settled into a new life away from the spotlight. He became a father to 5 children. He found happiness, but as with most champions, the competitor inside of him never truly went away. Then, in 2009, a final chance arrived at his doorstep. At the US Open at Bethpage Black, one of the toughest courses in the world, a 37-year-old David Duval, ranked 882nd in the world, found something. What he found is debatable. Maybe it was his old swing, his old groove. Some call it magic, some say lightning in a bottle. Whatever it was, for 1 week, it was back. He was hitting fairways.
He put it in. Oh, he likes it. Up the right side. Yeah, here we go. Very nice.
He was making putts. He was in contention.
Did he hit it firmly enough? Yes.
On Sunday, as the leaders faltered, David Duval, the man who hadn't won in nearly a decade, had a chance to win the US Open. It was nothing short of a miracle, a ghost from golf's past, suddenly alive and breathing. But unfortunately, the final round started with a disaster. On the par 3 third hole, his tee shot buried under the lip of a bunker. He failed to get it out on his first try, and his next shot flew across the green into the rough. He walked off with a triple bogey. He fell right off the leaderboard, and it looked like that dream was over.
Hard to watch after how hard Duval has worked all week.
Just a bad break. It was, it's a hard shot to hit the green. You don't expect to be buried on it.
But if there's one thing we know about David Duval at this point in the story, it's that he's not a quitter. He birdied the very next hole. On the 8th, he drained a 60-foot putt for another birdie. And after that, the crowd, the famously tough New York crowd, erupted in applause and admiration. They weren't just cheering for a good shot, they were cheering for a comeback, for the ultimate underdog, for the guy who had been to the top, fallen to the bottom, and was now impossibly climbing his way back up. Every person watching was desperate for a fairy tale ending to this part of the story. On the back nine, David was flawless. He made 3 consecutive birdies, including one on the treacherous 15th, the same hole that had derailed Tiger Woods. After a birdie on 16, he found himself briefly sharing the lead of the US Open. He came to the 17th hole with a legitimate chance to steal the tournament. The entire golf world held its breath. Could this actually be happening? Could David Duval complete the greatest comeback story in the history of the sport? He hit a fantastic approach shot, leaving himself a makeable par putt. But the fairy tale wasn't meant to be. The putt lipped out. It was a devastating bogey. At the same time, Lucas Glover, playing in the group behind him, birdied the 16th, creating a 2-shot swing. It was over. Duval finished tied for second, 2 shots ahead of Tiger Woods. It was a heroic effort, a beautiful, heartbreaking last gasp. But it was just that, a last gasp. He never contended in a major again. The comeback story never came true. The 2009 US Open wasn't a new beginning. It was the final, painful echo of a career that was already gone. The ghost had appeared for one last time, only to fade back into the mist, leaving the golf world to wonder what could have been. Today, David Duval works as a television analyst for the Golf Channel. He's insightful, honest, and respected. He plays in the father-son event with his kids, a week he calls the best of the year. He found happiness, he built a family. He survived. Despite being a former world #1, a players' champion, a tour champion, and a major winner, David Duval is not in the World Golf Hall of Fame. He sits in his home office most days with a replica of the claret jug next to the scorecard from his 59, trophies from a time when he was the best in the world. He says one of his biggest regrets is that his family never got to see him play at his peak. David is at peace with where things are now. He's built a different life, a meaningful one. And when people ask him to explain the collapse, to make sense of how a player so dominant could fall so far, so fast, he gives them the only answer he has. We'll never know.